Support for Just Seen It comes from Warner Archive Instant. Streaming hard-to-find movies and TV shows direct from the studio at WarnerArchiveInstant.com. Support for Just Seen It comes from Weaver's Coffee and Tea, makers of hand-roasted artisan coffee and hand-blended tea. Learn more at weaverscoffee.com. On the next episode of Just Seen It, we review the comedy where opposites attract, The Spectacular Now.
I'm Amy.
That's what I was going to say. Nice to meet you, Amy.
I fell in love with Shailene Woodley within the first 10 minutes of this movie.
The new period drama from Stars, The White Queen.
He has taken the throne by force.
He is the king. Those who speak against him are guilty of treason.
With the success of Game of Thrones, Stars goes medieval with their own adaptation of a series of novels.
The action comedy, Red 2.
You haven't killed anybody in months.
Hey, you know what? It's not a bad thing, okay? That's a positive thing.
Red 2 is Expendables with Oscar winners.
And offer our top picks in the movies for the first half of 2013.
And what about you with all your shedding?
I don't shed.
Really?
Monsters University made me laugh and almost made me cry.
Coming up next on Just Seen It. Sutter is a hard-partying high school senior.
You gotta live in the moment. It's about this. This is beautiful.
Woo! He meets Amy, a shy girl who he quickly falls for.
What's your story?
I don't really have any stories.
What do you mean? Everyone's got a story.
I don't know. I'd like to think that there's more to a person than just one thing.
Their new love proves opposites really do attract in The Spectacular Now.
Hi, I'm Salim.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Kevin, and we're here to talk about the new coming-of-age drama, The Spectacular Now. We've all just seen it. Liz, what'd you think?
The title's really good. I mean, it's really easy to remember. Like, what did you see? Oh, I saw The Spectacular Now. That just came right off the top of my head. It's just a celebration of a short period of time, and I think that's a really appropriate title.
And it's interesting because this movie actually starts off as what you would think is a typical high school movie. We have Sutter, who's doing his college applications, but his personal statement is about him breaking up with his girlfriend. But then you realize that it's a lot more than that. This guy Sutter is a very tragic character, and it's really about these adult emotions that he has to deal with.
Yeah, the film is set up as if it's going to turn into something like She's All That, or Can't Buy Me Love, or even something like A Walk to Remember. But then it completely flips your expectations, and it turns into a really genuine, sweet, and not in any way irritating film.
The script is based on the novel by Tim Tharp. It was written by Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, who did 500 Days of Summer. So there's a nice realism to it, and there's a little bit more depth to it than you'd expect from a teen film.
Well, yeah, they wanted to bring a little bit more gravitas to this. Yeah. Even though we do get into the sweet rom-com elements of it, it's also a very poignant father and son story, which I really gravitated to because it's really about this guy who lives in the now, the spectacular now. He has this charisma for days, and he could get by on this charisma, but it's sad because he could do so much more.
Yeah, and if you look at the mechanics of the script, it reminds me a lot about something like Safety Not Guaranteed, where it's just incredibly efficient. Every scene is there for a purpose and to move the story along, and this script doesn't hold your hand through the story. It lets you piece things together, and it lets you just see beats and moments that are most important in these characters' lives.
Eric Wolf and Cody Dennis were 100%
we were
hitting on
talking.
you.
They were not hitting on me. No, there's absolutely
yes,
no way.
Why don't you think they were hitting on you?
Because they weren't.
Because you're what? Amy, you're absolutely beautiful.
Oh my God, no.
So let's talk about Miles Teller, who plays
Oh my God.
Sutter.
Fantastic.
He's so good. Remember when we reviewed Footloose and we both were like, that guy, Miles Teller,
Yes.
he was so awesome.
Exactly. Well, because he brings this everyman quality.
Yeah,
you
sure.
feel like you've seen this guy before. You could be friends with him in high school, and he definitely looks like he is in high school as opposed to a Zac Efron or Selena Gomez.
He looks like a normal guy.
Exactly. Same thing with Shailene Woodley. They have this normal authenticness to them that really helps to bring out the emotions of the characters.
I just have to talk about Shailene Woodley for like 15 minutes. I know you won't give me 15 minutes, but I want to.
She's great.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
She just, it's as if she knew the character backwards and forwards. Right. And there's this one moment when they're hanging out with Sutter's dad at the bar, and Sutter and Amy are by the jukebox, and she just rubs his arm and just kind of holds on to him for a second. And just that one moment told me more about her character than 15 lines of dialogue.
What I liked about her is that she doesn't change who she is fundamentally. She reads sci-fi and she does this and she's not ashamed of it. She just is like, this is who I am. He comes in, she could easily become kind of a party girl or kind of adapt to what he's like, and doesn't. She's like, this is who I am, and I think you like me for who I am, and I'm not gonna change. Yeah. And that's refreshing because it's not usually how it goes.
From makeup to costume to performances to production value to cinematography, everything has a cohesive style to it. I mean, the long takes, all of it is just incredibly strong and from a specific point of view. This is all thanks to our director, James Ponsoldt, who recently directed Smashed, which was a great little indie starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Aaron Paul.
I read this article with Shailene Woodley where she actually said they didn't use any makeup and it was all natural. And a lot of it was because it was so hot that they would sweat it off, so they just decided not to use any makeup, and that's why it was so natural. And she felt free, but she felt at first a little self-conscious because there's just nothing on her.
Yeah, you could see imperfections of her skin and Miles Teller's skin, and it's just nice. It's just nice to see that on screen.
And it had a documentary feel because of that, I think, too, and he has a background in making documentaries.
I know people like Sutter. I know people that have gone through these issues, have absent fathers, and for some reason they have these destructive personalities that they don't really understand why. And I think this movie is important to really show this type of a character and show this type of arc and growth that he goes through.
The Spectacular Now is well directed, it has a great script, and it manages to avoid all cliches in its execution. See it.
A heartfelt coming-of-age story mixing themes well, resulting in a poignant and authentic tale of a tragic character. See it.
Spectacular Now is a simple movie about complex people that really affected me, so I say see it. Spectacular.
Spectacular, spectacular.
It is 1464, and a war is being fought over the throne of England.
Your life will not be easy because you wish it to be so. You will know loss. You must be stronger.
Two sides of the same family are in a vicious clash for power. Three powerful women become the center of the conflict in The White Queen.
Hi, I'm Salim.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Sean. We're going to talk about the new Starz series, The White Queen. We've gotten a chance to catch the first 3 episodes. We've all just seen it, and I want to welcome Lisa Johnson-Mandel as a guest reviewer. Lisa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm the film critic for The Mike Huckabee Show, which is a radio show that airs on about 220 Cumulus stations. And I'm also the Hollywood correspondent for HGTV's FrontDoor.com. And I'm really psyched to talk about The White Queen today. It's based on a historical fiction series by Philippa Gregory on the War of the Roses, also known as the Cousins' War.
Well, this show is going to draw immediate comparisons to Game of Thrones, even though it's not that apt in terms of comparisons. Yes, we have an Old English setting, yes, we have strong female characters, and yes, it does deal with magic, but that's about as far as it goes, because Game of Thrones takes place in a fictionalized setting, whereas this takes place in England in 1464.
It's more female-centric. I suppose they're trying to bring in a female audience that maybe Game of Thrones doesn't have. It's got a little bit more romance, which seems more like lust in my opinion, but there's a little bit more romance, and of course, there's a little less violence in it. So
a lot less violence.
A lot less violence.
Well, I think the comparison is better made with maybe the Borgias or the Tudors, because those are historical fiction as well. And unlike Game of Thrones, which is based on a fantasy novel, people who know that time in history actually know where this is going to go. And for me, that's part of the fun, because you know what's coming, and you can see excellent foreshadowing.
I noticed that, but then for someone like me who doesn't really know what is happening, you're trying to figure out who is the story about. Like, the first episode I really enjoyed because it has this love story between Elizabeth and King Edward, which I believed, even though it took place very quickly, but it felt real in this world. But as we go to the second and third episode, it takes place over about 4 to 5 years. There's a lot of plot, and it really doesn't give us time to breathe. I'm not sure by the end of the 3rd episode where the show is going.
I agree. I mean, we have Elizabeth Woodville is really the main character, played by Rebecca Ferguson, and then she gets married to the king in the pilot, and then I'm not sure where she has to go after that. She's the setup to all this conflict, and then What is she doing in episodes 2 and 3 other than really getting pregnant and having children? I'm not really sure that she has much of a place to go in this series.
I have to have you, and if you will not be my mistress, then you must marry me. To marry me. It is the only way. I'm mad for you.
I think what they could have done ahead of time is emphasize the fact to viewers that this is about 3 different women. One is the White Queen, one is the Red Queen, and one is the Kingmaker's daughter. And the latter 2 were just barely introduced in the first 3 episodes, so that's where it gets a little bit confusing. But these times in history are very confusing. The Yorks, the Lancasters, the Plantagenets, the War of the Roses, they're all related anyway. That's why it's called the Cousins' War. So it's confusing to almost everybody.
Sure.
Rebecca Ferguson, who plays Elizabeth, she's wonderful. She has to play this waifish character at the very beginning, but then she obviously has this very huge arc that she's going to go through, and she has the strength to really go deep when she needs to go deep.
As I was reading these books, and I'm a historical fiction nut, and I love Philippa Gregory, so I've read everything, and as I was reading them, she is exactly how I pictured the White Queen.
We also have Max Irons playing King Edward IV.
Son of Jeremy Irons.
Son of Jeremy Irons, yes, which is a reversal of fortune, if you will. He's good. I like him. I do think that with all of these, double crosses and things going on, that it feels like maybe some of the supporting characters are actually a little bit more interesting than the 2 main characters that we have. I really like James Frayne, who plays Lord Warwick, the Kingmaker. He's very, very good in a supporting role. And then the other women here, Amanda Hale as Lady Margaret Beaufort is terrific. She's a star.
These are different times, Lady Margaret. Lancaster brought us only war. King Edward will bring us peace.
He is a pretender. He has taken the throne by force.
He is the king, and those who speak against him are guilty of treason.
All right, so the first 3 episodes are all written by Emma Frost, and they're all directed by James Kent. If you're not used to a lot of dialogue, this might be a slow show for you.
But one thing that I loved about this show that I could tell they were really trying to do something different is how much of a focus it is on the female characters.
Yes.
We have a scene that I thought was wonderful where we have Elizabeth and her mother and the Duchess of York. And it's 3 powerful female figures trading intellectual jabs, which you usually see with 3 male characters. The female characters are at the forefront, and we have the male characters that are in the background, which is different. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that before. The White Queen is a breath of fresh air with some really wonderful acting, but the first 3 episodes don't have a proper footing, so I say stream it.
If you're interested in the premise and you don't mind the slow pace of historical drama, there's something here for you to check out. Stream it.
Having read and loved the source material, the TV adaptation is everything I hoped it would be and more. I say see it.
All right, our votes add up to 2 full tickets, which is a stream it for The White Queen.
Cheers. God save the Queen. Our DVD pick of the week is 42, the story of sports legend Jackie Robinson, who broke baseball's color barrier.
World's not so simple anymore. I guess it never was. We ignored it. Now we can't.
You Jackie Robinson?
The film stars Chadwick Boseman as Jackie Robinson and Harrison Ford as Branch Rickey, the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, who took a chance on this baseball great. When Scott Mance, Leah, and I reviewed 42, we gave it a see it. Also out this week is the action-packed Bullet to the Head, starring Mr. Expendable himself, Sylvester Stallone, which we gave a stream it. So as the second half of the baseball season gears up, check out 42 for your home theater entertainment. Enjoy.
A high-tech portable nuclear device goes missing.
At the height of the Cold War, a megaton device was smuggled into Moscow piece by piece and then reassembled.
Retired CIA agent Frank Moses is assigned to track it down.
11 million people are going to lose their lives if you don't help me. Is there any way you can tell us where the bomb is? I invented it.
So he collects his band of former misfits for one final mission in Red 2.
Hi, I'm Salim.
I'm Zoriana.
And I'm Aaron, and today we're here to talk about the new film starring Bruce Willis, John Malkovich, Anthony Hopkins, Helen Mirren, and Mary Louise Parker, Red 2. We've all just seen it, Salim, start it off.
Well, I actually saw the first Red when I was at home at my parents' house, seeing it on the television, and that's honestly where it belongs. Couch viewing through and through. And Red 2 is very much the same, very pedestrian in terms of the plotting. I actually liked a lot of the setup of the villains, setup some of the characters, but then it really just gets lost with all these ridiculous twists and story that just doesn't really make any sense.
There's so little difference from this and Red, the original film. Of course, we have the same writers, John and Eric Hober, who did the previous film.
And have done such masterpieces as Battleship and Whiteout.
Yes, that's true.
But because of that, that's why you don't really have to worry your brain cells about the plot. Enemies and allies switch sides so fast in this movie that if you go to the bathroom and come back, it's likely that there'll be a whole new set of partnerships. Just, it's okay to be confused.
Well, the problem, that's a problem. I mean, it's entertaining to watch all of these actors, but all these twists are so obvious and confusing at the same time, and it just doesn't make for a very good movie.
Yeah, no, it's way too plot heavy. There's actually a bit of it where the audience is way ahead of the characters on screen, which is never a good thing because then you're just telling the characters, hurry up and figure out what I already have figured out.
Yeah, well, that made me just want to watch the action sequences, which are fun, but again, they're derivative, they're nothing new and spectacular. Regardless of all that, I think we can say that the acting is good. Mary Louise Parker playing Frank's girlfriend, Sarah, probably the most entertaining part of the film because she's sort of this fish out of water and, you know, she's being introduced into the assassin world and wants to be a part of it, and I enjoyed her the most.
Well, this film is essentially Expendables with Oscar winners.
Yes.
Helen Mirren, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Anthony Hopkins. But if it wasn't for this cast, this film would go straight to DVD.
Thank God that Bruce Willis was in it as Frank Moses, our lead character. He brings the quips, he brings the humor. He's not John McClane status, but...
My problem with that is that Bruce Willis, I feel like he plays the same character. He's this everyman, this gruff guy with a heart. And I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more nuanced in this film. I mean, they tried...
Bruce Willis nuanced?
That's what I'm saying. They could attempt
Have you seen Death Becomes Her?
Oh, no, I understand that. I mean, but of course they're going for what works, and you know, I get that. But I wanted to see something a little bit different.
No, he just walks through every movie at this point. He's got his shtick down pat. Yeah. He doesn't have to try hard. He knows what the audience wants. He just does it.
You ignored my messages.
I am happy.
You're desperate.
I can make this work.
Frank, you're playing house.
Look, I'm retired, okay? I'm happy. We are happy.
Frank, you haven't killed anybody in months.
Hey, you know what? It's not a bad thing, okay? That's a positive thing.
It's funny that John Malkovich has become the comedy in a lot of movies now, especially after Burn After Reading. It seems like he's just the nutty guy who just either turns it up to 10 or to 15, and this time it was to 20, which was great.
But they all look like they're having fun.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's great, like because the humor is there. He is able to elicit humor. He has good timing. I love the relationship with him and Mary Louise Parker. That's one of the other very fun parts of it. So I like it. I just feel like. Is this what John Malkovich does now? I hope not.
And where else are you going to see Helen Mirren as a gun-toting killing machine?
Yeah, I mean, for me...
She's great too,
yeah. When I saw the first Red, I was like, hey, Helen Mirren shooting automatic weapons. I'm on board. Yeah. And again, that's there this time. However, there were a couple action scenes here and there that it didn't really suit her that well. There's a scene where she's in a car and shooting two pistols.
I
we've seen a million.
I like that scene.
I wanted
Although
to like
you could really, you know when there's a stunt double and when it's her.
MI6 has just given me a contract to kill you. Apparently you're guilty of nuclear terrorism, murder, and you're #1 on Interpol's Most Wanted.
What did you say?
Well, I said yes. You know, the money's good, and anyway, if I don't do it, somebody else will.
Our director is Dean Pariseau, who
Wait. A director directed this movie?
Yeah.
There's actually someone directing
this?
There was.
But you know what? This guy directed Galaxy Quest, one of the best
I love.
sci-fi comedies.
I love that
which
movie.
I love.
So
which
good.
is why this is such a disappointment.
Yeah, well, the real problem is that there just isn't much visual flair at all. I mean, the color palette is nice. There's these scene transitions that are shot in red and black that give it a graphic novel aesthetic. And they're cool, but that's really all there is that's visually exciting.
Dean Pariseau lately has been doing more TV work. Modern Family, Justified, The Good Wife. And TV by nature is very formulaic, and I feel like he took that formula and took it over to the film side instead of feeling like in features he can just be a little bit more free and open and take some risks and chances.
A fun watch on the couch. Red 2 will only entertain in spurts. Stream it.
Red 2 is the summer's most unanticipated sequel. I say skip it.
Red 2 is quite derivative and a little uninteresting, but the cast does make it an enjoyable watch on the couch. Stream it.
All right, our votes add up to 1 full ticket, which is a stream it for Red 2.
We look back at our favorite films of the first half of 2013. The third chapter in the relationship trilogy, Before Midnight. The real-life tragedy of Fruitvale Station. And the zany sequel to a beloved classic, Monsters University.
Hi, I'm Liz.
I'm Leah. And I'm David. And we're here today to talk about our favorite movies from the first half of 2013. Mine is Monsters University. How about you guys?
Mine is Before Midnight, and I think there's no movie out there that has the level of honesty and life that this movie has.
Well, my pick thus far is Fruitvale Station. And
another great pick.
Know.
Wow.
I don't know. We'll have to see. There's no competition here.
No, there's no competition.
It's always a competition.
So, why don't you start?
My film is the debut feature from Ryan Coogler, an alum for many of us from USC. It is about 22-year-old Oscar Grant, who was killed at the Fruitvale BART station in Oakland in 2008. By structuring it the way that Coogler has done this, it really asks the audience thematically to examine what is the measure of one person's life. Because if we knew that we would not be here 24 hours from now, all of these little quiet, delicate moments that we really don't pay attention to suddenly become magnified because we know how the film ends.
I'm scared.
Scared of what?
I hear guns outside.
Those just firecrackers. You're safe inside with your cousins.
What about you, Daddy?
So Liz, yours is the third in the trilogy, while mine is in the second in what I hope is a trilogy.
It's the third in a series of films written and directed by Richard Linklater, and actually co-written by Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke, our film's stars. Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke also co-wrote Before Sunset, which is the second in the series.
Right.
Of
And
the,
Before
of the
Sunrise
film.
was the first.
That's the first.
Okay, because that was on TV yesterday, and I started to watch it, but I was like, where does this fit? I don't.
You should watch them all. You should sit them down and watch all
7
of them in
hours.
succession.
Now,
They're
wasn't there a lot of time between the first one and now? I mean, when was the first one made?
They were actually, all three of the films are spaced out 9 years apart from each other. So the first
So
film
they're
was
like
95.
kids. They're like kids in the first one.
Yeah, they're early 20s, and
Wow.
they meet at a chance encounter on a train, and the whole film is discussing about destiny, about whether they were meant to meet, or whether their romance was kismet, or whether they should just part ways. And the second film, they revisit those same ideas, whether they make the right decisions in staying together or being apart. And the third film is a masterpiece. There's a scene in this film where Julie Delpy is half naked, and they have this astounding, honest fight between Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, Celine, and they fight for like 10 to 15 minutes, and it's the most raw fight you've ever seen, and she's topless throughout of it, and it's just this wonderful, stark moment of reality.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciated that. And in addition to that, the film has fantastic long takes and beautiful cinematography and fantastic writing.
Now, did you have an enormous amount of anticipation coming in to see this movie because it's been 9 years since
I liked the
last
first two films, but I'm not a fangirl for Richard Linklater.
That's what I was asking.
And I went in for this film, and it made me reevaluate the entire series.
Nice.
Interesting.
Fine. Like, I'm the first woman you've ever fell in love with?
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't
the
think
first
so.
one I felt truly connected to. Sure. What, I
Okay.
wasn't your first love?
No, of course not.
Oh. No, I thought I was.
No. Jesse, stop
It's okay.
this.
It's okay.
It's dumb.
It's not a big deal.
No. Okay. How old are you? Come on.
41. I've loved only you.
The reason I picked Monsters University is that you really have to be an amazing storyteller to make me care about cartoon characters. And much as Pixar did in Toy Story 3, where they're all about to go in the incinerator and they all hold hands, and I'm about to burst into tears, there is a scene in this movie that's much like that movie. But let's just say that Sully does something that he thinks is the right thing to do for Mike, and it turns out to be the wrong thing. But his intentions were good, and sometimes that happens. We can do things with the best of intentions and have it blow up in our face. Now, I could nitpick at this movie and go, okay, well, Billy Crystal and John Goodman, they really don't do voice characterizations. They do their own voices, but they're so invested in these characters that it just disappears.
I know you're a princess and I'm just a stable boy.
Mom! What are you doing?
Your grubby paw was in my bed.
Were you kissing my hand?
No. And what about you with all your shedding?
I don't shed.
Really?
And see, I would have never thought that Monsters University could be on par with Monsters, Inc.
They created a new world in Monsters, Inc. It wasn't derivative of anything else that we've seen. But really what Pixar did that was super brilliant was they took a movie that's 12 years later, so everyone that saw it when they were little kids are now in college. So what do? They base the story in college.
I think we've identified 3 winners.
Absolutely. And if you haven't seen these 3 movies, they should be on your must-see list for this summer.
Cheers!
To Monsters University.
Before midnight.
And Fruitvale Station.
On our next episode, it's Midsummer Indie Madness as we review Ain't Them Body Saints, Lovelace, In a World, and Woody Allen's Blue Jasmine. And get this, we scooped the final episodes of Breaking Bad. How cool is that? Thanks for watching and see you next week.
Due to the self-reflexive nature of Red 2, I find it indubitably ineffective.
Support for Just Seen It comes from Warner Archive Instant. Streaming hard-to-find movies and TV shows direct from the studio at WarnerArchiveInstant.com. Support for Just Seen It comes from Weaver's Coffee and Tea, makers of hand-roasted artisan coffee and hand-blended tea. Learn more at weaverscoffee.com.